in Republic of Marshall Islands and coordinator of IAED in the Oceania region. I'll be your moderator for this webinar. It is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our speakers, panelists, and viewers to this UPF Peace Talk webinar on the theme, the responsibility of the business community in our interdependent world. This webinar will also constitute the inauguration of the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, IAED, Oceania chapter. IAED is a project of UPF, Universal Peace Federation. It is an NGO of the United Nations. The International Association for Peace and Economic Development affirms the role of business leaders, and investors to contribute to peace and mutual prosperity around the world. We have an excellent lineup of speakers today to address this very important topic. Each speaker has a unique and important contribution to make to address our theme, and they will offer the insight and the reflection on the responsibility of the business community in our world today. Our first speaker is Mr. Yutaka Yamada. He is currently chairman of UPF Oceania region. He graduated from Sonmun University with a Master's of Theology 2014. He worked as a leader of youth and college students in Korea from 2004 to 2008. He was the district leader of UPF Philippines 2008 to 2013. He later became a national director of UPF in Malaysia for 2013 to 2019. Here now, welcome Mr. Yutaka Yamada for his introduction to the International Association for Peace and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Ito. It is my great privilege to welcome Dr. Shahid, Mrs. Wendy, and also our speakers and viewers from around the world to our Universal Peace Federation Peace Talks webinar featuring the inauguration of the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, IAED, in Oceania. The theme of the webinar is the responsibility of the business community in our interdependent world. As chairman of UPF Oceania, I would like to provide an introduction of the IAED, which was formed recently as a major project of UPF by Dr. Hakcha Hamboon, the co-founder of UPF, along with her husband, the late Dr. Samyeon Moon. I will outline the purpose and direction of IAED. In today's world, corporations impact almost every aspect of people's lives. They influence how people communicate, how they dress, what information they receive. In our education system, for example, due to the steadily growing reliance on technology in school, which has been dramatically accelerated during the coronavirus pandemic, major global level corporations are affecting and even shaping the content our children are consuming and influencing their young minds. Given this situation, it is imperative that we elevate the moral standard of cooperation and encourage them to move away from the often exclusive focus on maximizing profit. Father Samyeon Moon used the analogy of the human body to explain the proper interrelationships of the various sectors of society and amongst the people in general. Since it touched on the role of economic institutions, I will outline his thesis in more detail here. Based on some of the underlying principles of UPF, Father Moon explained as follows: the ideal world to be built by mature people, resembles the structure and functions of a perfect individual. By analogy with the human body, whose organs function in accordance with the subtle commands of the brain, all institutions of the ideal global society are to abide by the desires of God. In the human body, the lungs, heart, and stomach maintain harmonious interaction in accord with the direction of the brain, transmitted through the spinal cord and peripheral nervous system. By analogy, the three branches of government in the ideal world, the legislative, judicial, and executive branches will interact in harmonious and principled relationship when they follow God's guidance as conveyed through people of God. As the four limbs of the body move according to the commands of the brain for the welfare of the individual as a whole, the economic institution of the ideal world, corresponding to the limbs, will uphold the desire of God and promote the welfare of the entire world. Just as the liver stores nourishment for the entire body, in the ideal world, there will always be certain reserve to be tapped as needed for the public good. Since every part of the human body has a vertical relationship with the brain, horizontal relationships are naturally established between the different organs to form an integrated organism. Likewise, in the ideal world, because people's horizontal relationship with each other are rooted in their vertical relationship with God, they will form one integrated and interdependent society in which they share all their joys and sorrows. In this society, to hurt someone else will be experienced as hurting one's own self. Hence, its citizens simply will not want to commit crime. Today's democracy is characterized by the three separate branches of government and proliferation of political parties resemble the structure of a healthy human body to some extent. Nevertheless, because of our separation from God, today's democracies, in fact, bear more of a likeness to the body of a sick or injured person. They cannot fully display their original qualities and function in their full potential. They lack order and harmony and suffer continual conflict among themselves. In order to unleash society's true potential, we need to remedy the current illness by restoring people's vertical relationship with God. In accordance with these principles, the International Association for Peace and Economic Development affirms the role of business leaders, and investors to make the world a better place, addressing its most significant challenges and promoting world peace, long-term mutual prosperity, and truly sustainable development. IAED encourages business leadership around the world to contribute to making our nation safer, more secure, and more affluent place to live, reducing poverty, and creating opportunities for more people to live purposeful and meaningful lives. We need to work towards the goal of establishing one family under God by practicing the principle of true love, living for the sake of others, which is a universal principle featured and taught by all the faith traditions. I hope this serves to clarify the purpose and goals of the IAED and I look forward very much to hearing from all the presenters today. They each have their unique perspective, and I believe they will contribute greatly to the overall theme of today's webinar, which is to explore the responsibility of the business community in our interdependent world. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yutaka Yamada, your deep insight of introduction. Our second speaker today is Mrs. Wendy Francis. Wendy Francis is the Queensland and the Northern Territory Director for the Australian Christian Lobby. She is a recognized Australian spokesperson for the right of women and children and an effective campaigner against sexual exploitation in all its forms. Wendy has traveled to the countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Cambodia, where she has participated in projects to rescue women and children from sexual abuse and provide literacy and health projects amongst rural women. Her background includes managerial position at Griffith University and Queensland Baptist. Wendy is an author of a children's book. It's a director and board member of Samaritan Purse Australia and Vision Media Australia. She and her husband, Peter, has 3 married children and 10 beautiful grandchildren. It's our pleasure to invite Wendy Francis to speak to us today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Ito, and thank you also, Mr. Yutaka and other panelists. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you. My greetings to all who are watching live now or who may be watching later. I just get straight into what I'd like to say because I think it is a really important topic and I am grateful for the opportunity to make a contribution. Andrew Breitbart was the founder of Huffington Post. He has passed now, but he famously said that politics is downstream from culture. And what he meant was that to change politics, we first have to change culture. And I personally believe there's a lot of truth in that, but I wonder too at times whether we are also seeing something else, and this is what we're talking about today. Because with the rise of big business and globalization, I wonder, are we witnessing in our day culture being downstream from the overwhelming desire of corporations to make money and to make money whatever it takes? We don't have to look very far to see the effect that big corporations have had and continue to have on our culture. I don't want to dwell on this particular point, but as an example, consider with me the way that corporations, particularly here in Australia, corporations such as Qantas, how they behaved in the Australian same-sex marriage debate that we had. It got to the stage where it felt as if you were a traitor to traditional marriage. If you flew on their airline, it was very difficult. Every Australian was aware of the Qantas position. It was very, very public. And we particularly watched when one of our star rugby players, Israel Folau, was removed from his position by Rugby Australia because he believed that marriage was between one woman and one man. And he was punished for that position because the dollars had actually spoken because Qantas was such a large sponsor of Rugby Australia, and so he was gone. But that is just an example of what I think I'm saying. But what I want to briefly address this morning in regards to what I believe is actually a stranglehold on our culture that we're witnessing by big corporations is the question as to what effect is this having in regards to the decline in morality that I see happening in our Western culture particularly. What effect, if any, is it having on issues of sexualization, such as pornography, and of course the strong link between pornography to the diabolical practice of trafficking. So in the short time I have, I just wanted to give you two examples of what I'm talking about that will show you why I believe what I believe. There's one past example and a present example, and I believe that they prove the link, and I do believe that they should concern every child of God. So the first example is a past example in 2013, so it's not that long ago, but in 2013, Foxtel put up a massive billboard in the centre of Sydney. And the billboard was a photo. It was massive. It was in King's Cross. It was very, very central Sydney. And it was depicting bestiality. So please excuse my description. I won't go into great detail, but it is awful. But the huge, prominent billboard depicted a man who was acting as the British Prime Minister, simulating sex with a pig. And I'm sorry to say that. Now, there was an uproar, and Foxtel apologised and said that the billboard was clearly inappropriate, that it was in appalling taste, and that they would take it down. But of course, the damage was done. And I would say to you that it achieved exactly what Foxtel wanted, because it got media attention. Foxtel had absolutely no regard for children in this advertisement. Of course they would have known how upsetting it would have been. Of course they knew it was inappropriate, but they ignored that because their concern was not for the society or for the children being confronted by such an awful image and such an awful concept, because they were after free advertising, and that's exactly what they got. They removed the billboard within a few days, but it was all over the media. They received no fines. There was no penalty for them having done this. So Sydney moved on as if nothing was to see here, because after all, it's Foxtel and Australians love their entertainment. And so we tend to ignore things that are going to actually change our sense of enjoyment in life, to our shame. And so let me move to the present. Allow me to address a current campaign that I am involved in. I think it's another good example of what we're talking about, where corporations are affecting our sense of morality, and they're certainly disregarding any sense of what is right for our children, and particularly for our women, but not just our women, our men as well. I'm involved in a campaign that is fighting against a Netflix movie. The movie is named Cuties. And again, I'm not going to go into any graphic detail because it's just too awful. But here again, also, people love their Netflix. So the movie is called Cuties, and it has created global outrage right around the world. And it's done this because of its very highly sexual nature. But more to the point, the fact that the main actors are 12-year-old children acting as 11-year-old children. Netflix are making money off the exploitation and the sexualization of these very young girls, and they are profiting from the distribution of what is hard to describe as anything but child pornography. Can I say that the explicit nature of the scenes in the Netflix movie Cuties are shocking? But sadly, the Australian Classification Board has given this film an MA15+ classification, which means that it can be viewed in Australia. And in doing so, I strongly believe that the Classification Board have failed to consider provisions actually in our criminal law. So they've looked at the sexualisation of the movie and they've said, oh, it's okay, nothing to see here. But they have failed to look at our criminal law and possible offences relating to this film. And we're not alone in believing this. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but also the Australian Christian lobby, but we're not alone in this. In the US, a grand jury in the state of Texas has actually initiated court action against Netflix because of this movie. They are accusing them of broadcasting lewd material. So here in Australia, we, and I'm talking about the Australian Christian Lobby, but also many thousands of people have joined us in this campaign. We believe that this film, Cuties, constitutes child abuse material. And I'm just going to read a short snippet from our Commonwealth Criminal Code because I think it's relevant for us to grasp that I really do believe that in this instance, Netflix have actually broken our law. Our Commonwealth Criminal Code said this, that child abuse material is, and I'm quoting directly from the code, material that depicts a person or representation of a person who is or who appears to be under 18 years of age and who is engaged in or appears to be engaged in a sexual pose or sexual activity. So that's just that in a nutshell. It goes on and I could keep reading, but that's really the main argument that we have. I do believe that there may well be other offences too, including under our state and territory jurisdictions. And so we have sent a letter to the Australian Federal Police requesting for them to initiate a federal investigation in respect of Cuties and these particular sections in our criminal code. And we're yet to be notified of the outcome of that request. But we've also officially requested a review of the Classification Board's decision. It's not an easy thing to do. There's a $10,000 fee to even request a review of their decision. I'm coming to a close. Can I just say it is outrageous to me that on the one hand, we speak about fighting against pedophilia and anything that would harm our children in this way. And at the same time, we ignore something because obviously the power and the money that is wielded by these large corporations, such as Foxtel and Netflix. And I could speak about many, many more instances, but these were two really classic ones. In the front page of the Australian newspaper, so one of our main Australian newspapers is just called The Australian. And on the front page of the newspaper this week, we had a worrying article. It was talking about the way that our Australian Federal Police and our Home Affairs Minister, Peter Dutton, are struggling. The words were struggling to keep up with child abuse online. They talked of the fact that there's 157 people in Australia a month being arrested for online child exploitation. So you can imagine how many go undetected, and that there has been a surge in child sex abuse. Yet at the same time, we have let this movie go through. It's illogical, and we have to actually speak up and say, this is just not on. We say on the one hand that we will do what it takes to combat pedophilia, to protect vulnerable children online and in the real world. And I would maintain that what Netflix have done in this film is exploit our children because they want to profit from doing so. And so one of our previous Prime Ministers, Tony Abbott, he said that if the silent majority remains silent for much longer, we will no longer be the majority. And so I encourage Australians and I encourage people around the world, it's time we need to stand up and we need to speak out against this, because reasonable people agree with us. It's just that they too often don't want to give away some of their luxuries and some of the things they enjoy, and we have to be prepared to do so. We have to say there is a line that has been crossed here, and big corporations cannot get away with exploiting our children for the sake of money. So thank you for the opportunity of saying all of that. I do believe this conversation is very important, so I appreciate being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wendy, and your analyzation of the social moral issue. We very appreciate your speech. Next, our speaker must be Mr. Suwani Matu.
Greetings from the islands of Vanuatu. Good morning to you all, and thank you for the opportunity that the conference has given to me to do a short presentation. My name is Suwani Joseph Madao. I am the CEO of Enteni Company Limited, Antenny Company Limited is a registered local tour operator in Vanuatu. We operate the most accessible and active volcano in the world. And as you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has really put a stop to tourists coming to Vanuatu, and the tourism industry in Vanuatu is really been affected. However, with the theme of the conference, which is about the responsibility of private sector to community, when I read that, I felt that I could share our experience with Antenny Company. Antenny Company is a social enterprise, meaning that we involve communities in supporting the company. We, for example, the fees that we collected, we share with the locals that do the cultural performances, and we also involve those who are involving in transport to do the transfer for us from airport to the accommodations hotels, and hotels to Falcon One back to hotels and the airport. And the last 3 years, really, Antenny Company took off. Our experience is that working with the locals, involving them, and for them to get some benefits out of it, they really support the company. And we're hoping that this year we'll reap the benefits of what we developed in the last 3 years. Unfortunately, COVID-19 came and unexpectedly, and with the lockdowns, tourists are not coming, and the business is affected. But from that experience, I feel that we, the business community, have the responsibility to the communities. Sometimes we focus a lot on making profits and forgetting that the people that are supporting our businesses are our clients or our customers. Business do not absorb cost. Sometimes you hear people saying that business are paying taxes and FATs and various taxes, but actually they're not. They're collecting funds from clients and giving it to the government. That is why government is licensing them to do that, and a little bit of profit for them as the payment. So we cannot really say that the businesses are paying taxes, therefore they can solely focus on making profits. No, I believe with our experience with Antenny, if you involve the locals, the communities, people will support, and you can still make the profit you want. And that is what God intended for us, to work together as community. Let's share the resources together. I mean, we are small island countries, but I believe what we've done with the Antenny Company could be a role model that could be duplicated somewhere in the world, and it's working. Unfortunately, pandemic has stopped that, but it could have been a good example to adopt that. Okay, so I think that's the experience. If you have any question about the Antenny Company, how we did that, I'm willing to respond to any of your queries or question. With that, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak in this conference. I believe God has blessed us with different talents, and God has, give us wisdom, knowledge, and the wealth to share with other people. I wish you all a good conference, and may God continue to bless us in this important discussion. Thank you.
Next speaker must be Dr. Shahid Yamin. Dr. Shahid Yamin is Executive Chairman and co-founder of Global Opportunities Commercialization, GOC. He has developed the concept of Smart Institute for developing appropriate technology-based entrepreneurs in poorer regions of the world. GOC executive team strongly believe that social and economic empowerment are the drivers of peace in the world. Self-help raises the self-esteem of individuals who then become a creative asset for the community. It gives people a purpose of help them to live and grow. Dr. Yamin is also an ambassador for peace with UPF and the coordinator of the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, Victoria. It is our pleasure to invite Dr. Shahid Yamin to speak to us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ito, Reverend Ito, for this kind introduction. I would also like to thank Yutaka Yamada, Chairman of Oceana, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The title of my speech is Independence and Interdependence of Business, Society, and our interdependent world. Now, what exactly I mean in that title? There is interdependence and there is independence. They both go hand in hand together. Independence is a need for this world in terms of creating entrepreneurship. Independence is a need for this world to create new ways of using technology to serve human beings. And it means we train our people in terms of developing self-belief, self-worth, which is based on independence. Yet interdependence also has a very big role to play. In a society, interdependence is what creates synergy in efforts. Interdependence is what creates interaction between different types of people, and so on and so forth. My take on this topic is this, that we live in a world which is interdependent by default. By default in terms of being increase in communication and transport, technological advancement in these areas have created an interdependent world. Globalization is predominant in every part of the world, which by virtue actually talks about interdependent world. What is actually missing is the sense of humanity. What is missing is people working in terms of interdependence and independence with a view of humanity. Because in reality, if we look around, and it has been said by the previous speaker that sometimes corporations lose sight of their damage to the humanity. It's not only the children, it is the whole humanity that is affected out of it. So it is not only women being exploited, it is humanity being exploited. Because we first came into this world as human beings. Gender was only part of our makeup. And we have to look at human beings. We have to make commercial decisions on basis of how it is going to have impact on human beings. Facebook is wonderful platform to connect from one person to other, to share your personal achievements, to share your thoughts, etc., etc. Yet Facebook inventors never thought about humanity, because now your personal freedom is at risk. Now you have cyber security, cyber bullying rather, which occurs, and lot of young people actually do suicides. I call this as social, economic, political feudalism, because that overpowers the the need to make profit against need to serve humanity. Because serving humanity has to be the principal goal. Creating humanity, developing humanity has to be the principal goal. It is not profit only that makes the world goes around. It is the humanity that makes the world go around. And the more coordinated effort is made to bring humanity together, the better the world will be, and peace will automatically come. Just imagine, we created, I mean, drone is very, very good for taking photographs, for enjoyment, flying, and so on and so forth. Yet drone is now used as an armament, which actually goes and actually in conflict areas and throw bombs on without realization of the innocent people around. If there was a human being driving a plane, at least that human being may have the empathy that I should throw the bomb in a particular place where there is less human damage. But drone doesn't understand that. Drone goes and do that. Thousands and millions of people have become homeless. Thousands and millions of people have been dislocated. Thousands of children have become orphan. A new form of crime has started in terms of smuggling people for illegal means. And it is not about illegal in terms of entering the country, it's about illegal in terms of using human beings as slaves. We thought that we have abolished slavery, but a new form of slavery still exists in this world. And it is not the question of tolerance about different types of people in this world. It is the question of acceptance of different types of people in the world. People who are Christians, people who are Muslims, people who are Buddhists, people who are Hindus, and so on and so forth. Because God created human beings. And these human beings have taken different paths to their lives. It is important that commercial organizations talk about, instead of profit maximization, they should talk about profit optimization. Because maximization tends to say, make profit at all cost, which obviously degrades humanity, which obviously ignores humanity. Businesses make risk analysis of their business and what sort of risk they can see in the future that may affect them. Why don't they make risk analysis for humanity? How is it going to affect humanity in the future? Because if we want to live in a world of peace, rhetoric is not going to make it. If we want to live in a world of peace, we have to rethink about what human values do we bring to this world? What human values are more important than profit? What human values are more important than getting billions of dollars in the bank account? We need to rethink about our strategies as businesses, as interdependent businesses in the global world, where they go to developing countries and actually use developing country resources and transfer 90% of the profit out of that country. Developing country remains poor. And nothing happens in terms of the social change that is necessary. So it is important that, in fact, if you ask me, one positive thing out of this pandemic which has made no distinction in color, which has made no distinction in religion, which has made no distinction in your position in the society, is one thing that hopefully the leaders of the world, the wisdom of the world, will start to think about re-strategizing their businesses, their social interaction, their societies, where there is independence in terms of sovereignty and in terms of freedom of religion, freedom of culture, etc., etc. But there is also a sense of humanity, the sense of non-exploitation of humanity. Because it is previously, all pandemics happened in a lot of poor countries, and it was very easy for us in the West to close the book and say, well, it is happening in Africa in the poorer community, it doesn't affect my son. Today, I have no choice. This pandemic has taught the world a lesson that it doesn't distinguish whether you are a developed country or underdeveloped country. It doesn't distinguish whether you are a Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, or a Christian, or any other religion. It doesn't distinguish between the color of your skin. It doesn't distinguish between the status you have in the society. Prince Charles has got it. Prime Minister of England has got it. President Trump has been reported to have it. So it doesn't distinguish that. It is saying to us that if we start to take care of the humanity, then humanity will progress and we can make our revenues, our profits, etc., etc. Finally, I will leave my audience and with these elegant speakers with one verse of a poem. The poem was written by Alfred Lord Tennyson in 1896, 2 years before he died. And one of the verses attracted me very much. The original verse was, "Men may come and men may go, but I go on forever." This poem was written about a brook, a small waterfall which goes through different challenges in life, etc., etc., and eventually merge with the river. So this was in my humble literary sense, he was talking about life. There are only two things which are permanent in life. One is birth and one is death. You can be born anywhere in the world. You can die in any different way. But there is nothing that can change the destiny of death. The only thing that can change is the period between birth and destiny, which is the journey of life. How you journey the life is what is going to change how the society moves forward. So I have adopted this little verse as human may come and human may go. Humanity goes on forever. Because you and I and everybody else will one day go from this world. But humanity will not go from this world. Humanity will remain in this world. And it is with that I conclude my presentation. I believe that commercial interest, and I have been a business academic. I have never been to a class to actually teach knowledge. I have been to a class to change human lives. And for the last 40 years, I have changed human lives of thousands and thousands of students. And I believe very strongly, because if I go just to impart the knowledge, I would be just paid for what I was doing. I went there to change the human lives. And it made a huge difference in the sort of satisfaction that I got. So what I'm saying is, to conclude, that giving attention to humanity is what is required in post-pandemic world. Giving attention to the importance of humanity as part of the business decision, as part of our social decision, as part of our political decisions is important. Because economic, social, and political feudalism that has permeated the world for the past so many years, pre-pandemic, cannot continue to serve the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yamin. Your deep and wide range business-related morality or discipline, we very appreciate your speech.
Thank you.
Next, it's now time for the question and answer to our panelists. I'd like to invite Mr. John Admites, President of UPF Australia, to select questions that have come in from viewers and conduct the question and answer session. Thank you. Over to Mr. John.
Yes, hello and greetings to everyone. This is from one of the attendees that is listening in. And this is the Christian lobby in America could or start or can start a court case against the abuse of porn industry on children online, and Judge Amy Coney Barrett can approve it. They should seek to ban the porn websites, close them down, and put their owners in prison. Even if they operate from a remote island in the Pacific, what do you think? Any panelist can answer. So basically, the person's asking, to ban all porn websites and put them in prison. So it's an open question. So I invite our panelists to make a comment. Okay.
It's very difficult to ban pornography, and in most countries, adult pornography is actually legal, so there's no grounds to ban it. I agree. I would like to, but when it's child pornography, then in most countries around the world, and I don't know of any that don't agree with this, when it's child pornography, it is illegal, and so we should be able to act against that. And so that's why we're calling out this film in particular. But as I say and mentioned in my talk, our major newspaper says that we have an increase in child pornography. And so we just have to actually find a way to stop this. It's very interesting because if there's something that is impacting on a corporation's bottom line, financial, they come in very quick. And they're able to pull things down if they don't want them. Twitter's able to pull down comments that they don't like. They can censor them. Facebook can do the same. And yet all of a sudden, when it seems like it's child exploitation material, it's just too hard. And so we can't allow that to happen. We have to actually stand up and speak.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add to that?
Yes, I think I endorse what Mrs. Wendy has talked about, that, my response to this question is, you see, evils emanate when there is a sense of non-belonging within societies. Evils emanate when there is a sense of restlessness in the society, and so on and so forth. And I think, I consider child pornography as not only abhorrent, it's really so demeaning and so sad for young children to go through that sort of process, and so on and so forth. So there is no doubt that it should be banned, they should be punished, etc., etc., etc. But my argument is, when a society is interdependent, at the same time, it is in a state of a flux. I mean, In our company, we get a lot of young people who do their high school, etc. They are totally confused where they want to go in terms of their professions, what profession they choose. We have got quite a few young people in our organization who come there, and we advise them as to how they can choose these different professions. Young people are totally confused. They are not only confused about what their future life is going to be, they are confused about how they should interact with the society. So evil emanates from the society when there is disintegration in terms of values, in terms of thought process, in terms of freedom of speech, in terms of freedom of thought, where people can openly discuss things and alleviate their tensions, internal tensions, to create internal peace. So I think this is one of the things that we need to think about. That's why I was talking about humanity, because once you start to look as a globe in terms of humanity and the impact on humanity, you start to change your mind. You start to change your pathways you start to change your own morality. But if there is disenchantment in the society, there is a flux where they cannot understand and they cannot express what they feel, how they feel it. And there is a whole social media which is impacting them. Then these sort of things would keep on happening. And it's amazing, we talk about technology, but how can technology, we are so advanced in technology that we can create barriers to stop these things to happen.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shahid. Yeah, one more question that can also be open to everyone. It relates to the interdependence aspect to business. How responsible should businesses be for their actions? How can, not just how responsible, but how can we implement a process or a system that will enable business to take the moral high road, even though their shareholders are demanding for more profits? So I'll just open that up. Do you think that there is something that can be put into place to help business be more interdependent? In other words, think about others instead of their own corporate responsibility.
Can I answer that question? Because
Sure.
this question has been on my mind for quite some time. You see, what happens is that
Sorry?
Can you hear them? Okay. Corporations do not even look at their employees as humans. They look at them means to an end. These employees come there, they work, and they get paid. And that's the end of the relationship. I have developed a training program which says that empowering intangible assets for tangible benefits. My view is that instead of making a law and then people finding different ways of bypassing the law, the important thing is when profit is definitely one thing that has to be there if a corporation has to survive. Okay, so it is not an evil necessarily. Okay, it is part of your investment, part of your the work, etc., that you do in the corporation. The goods and services that you produce creates profit. So there is nothing evil about profit. The evil part of profit is when profit is made at all cost, where long-term strategies are sacrificed for short-term gain, where your outlook is as a leader, as a CEO, as a chairman, whatever it is, your only outlook is how much bonuses can I muster during my tenure. This is where it goes haywire. Second thing is that many of the, particularly public companies, many of the public companies, their share prices fluctuate on basis of speculators, because speculators play the game to get maximum revenue at all cost. They don't care about what the corporation does or not does. They are only interested in how to make money. And if there are long-term investors with corporation, then they will have long-term goals, and in that long-term goals, they will have humanity in place and so on. The first step is to help them make more profit by recognizing the human potential they have got. This is the intangible potential they don't recognize. People come and do their job and go away. People have no relationship with that organization except getting enough money to put food on the table. If you change that relationship as a family, make corporation as a family, where everybody has got dignity, everybody has got certain respect, and everybody is allowed to share their ideas. Believe you me, there will be so many innovations from the shop floor that will amaze corporations and that will give them more profit, but not at the expense of humanity. And it takes very little things to make that change. Imagine you are working in a shop floor and I come and say, "Hi, John, how is your family? How many children do you have?" It doesn't take too much investment to get John's children into my database. We have the technology to do that. And technology will automatically send a birthday greeting to your son or daughter or your wife. Your whole perspective will change when you come to work. How about just, shop floor people wear overalls or coats, whatever, right? And they work in greasy environment, they work in dirty environment, it gets dirty, they keep on wearing. They take it home to wash, wife refused to wash it in the washing machine because the washing machine will have a smell which will be permeated into other clean clothes and so on and so forth. So they keep on wearing that it smells, it has sweat, etc., etc., etc. Corporation can do one thing, that every Monday you get a washed overall or lab coat, whatever the case may be. Your whole life will change. And the cost to the corporation is absolutely peanuts. If the CEO of the company comes and talks to different people just for, not every day, just once a week, and ask them how they are doing. What problems do they have? And how can the company assist them in solving those problems? If CEO can tell these people that you are free to think, you bring new ideas and you get bonuses for it, if those ideas are applicable. Can you imagine how much innovation can happen there? I give you a case example. Caterpillar was working in one of the areas of United States relatively small. Our small areas are very small compared to the population of a small area in United States, right? And they were almost at the verge of bankruptcy. And they had to get rid of 16,000 people in that community. Do you know what they did? They spent $2.5 million in retraining them, in helping them to get jobs so that it doesn't affect the economy of that particular region. What that did was that those people were loyal to Caterpillar even wherever they were working to. Second thing is, those people who were in Caterpillar working, they became very loyal to the company, and they were prepared to take pay cuts. They were prepared to do anything to make that company out of the red. And within 2 years, it started to make profit. The thing is, these intangible human potential gold mine is not used to its maximum advantage for the person as well as for the corporation. You change that, their attitude changed to the outside world. The whole company's attitude changed to the outside world because they recognize that people can bring in a lot of ideas. People can bring in a lot of human potential and capacity. So this is what is important. I can give you case after case. There are some companies which has done marvelous thing. A Japanese company, the general manager came on the shop floor, which is quite common in Japan, and the worker was about to pack his bag and go. It was 5 o'clock. So he approached that worker and he said, "Can you clean this machine? Because this machine actually provides your food." So he said, "My time is up, so I'm going." So he said, okay. He took off his jacket, put it aside, pull up his sleeve, and actually in front of that person actually cleaned the machine. Do you know what happened? From that day onwards, all machines were spotless. People would work 15 minutes extra to keep their machine clean. And not only that, it created a mindset that this machine actually provides food for my family. Because if this machine was not there, I was not going to be employed. So value system is grown from inside, not from outside, not by legal means. This is where the society is going wrong. We create laws to fight something, then there is another loophole that is created, and we create another law for it. Let us do it from inside. Let us create that value system from inside, and the world will change. So when we talk about commercial organizations, the shareholder perspective will change when they come to the company and say it's like a family. Every worker comes on Monday and look forward to go to work, not because he has to put food on the table, but because he enjoys work. And that is the answer to that question, that this is how you can do it. It's a long answer, but it is the answer to the question.
Understand. Thank you, Dr. Shahid. Yeah, that was very insightful about creating that culture. That was also something that Wendy was talking about, that having the culture be the environment in which things grow and develop, and we look at the public concern before we look at the private gain. So is there, just offer Wendy an opportunity to give a final comment if she likes to do that.
When it comes to something like the Cuties movie, I think there is a good example here, because over 660,000 people globally have made a commitment to cancel their Netflix. So I do think that corporations need to realize, what Dr. Shahid is saying, the change of culture in our corporations. We can help them, we can give them incentive, because it's not always that it comes from within. So I think the consumer needs to give our big corporations incentive to actually adopt a humankind model of operating their businesses. And so people have cancelled Netflix. I hope that that's sincere, because I think sometimes we sign pledges and we don't actually do it. But I think we need to make corporations realize that if they're going to actually do things like exploit our children, we're not going to support them.
Thank you, everyone. So that concludes our question and answer, and I thank everyone.
Thank you, all of the speaker, Mr. Yamada, Mrs. Wendy Francis, Dr. Shahid Yamin. We now come to the conclusion of our webinar today. In closing, I'd like to congratulate and thank all our speakers and the panelists for their excellent presentations. They have certainly provided us deep insight into our topic, the responsibility of a business community in an interdependent world. We come away from this webinar much enriched and more knowledgeable on this important topic. Thank you also to all our viewers for your interest and support, and to the technical staff who made this webinar possible. We invite you to look out our future webinar in the UPF Peace Talk series. And we put out a special invitation to all of you and your friend and colleague to attend. We thank you again and wish you all an enjoyable and a restful weekend. Thank you and God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.